Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to give it another minute before we begin to get some more people attending. One moment. Hi, everyone. So we have Rebecca Sines here today conducting a training on the Campbell Fittings Cam Group couplings. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the question feature and we'll go over all your questions and comments during the wrap-up section at the end. So without further ado, I'll pass this over to Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rebecca Sines. I am the Houston and South Texas Regional Sales Manager. I appreciate you all taking time today to join in and learn about our Cam Group couplings. There will be a couple of poll questions asked throughout the hour, and then we'll wrap up with a little Q&A. So at any point in time, just remember to jot those questions down and we'll take some time at the end to answer them for you. So this webinar is going to lay out the differences between our standard Cobra versus our Campbell Cobra and help you choose the correct coupling for your applications. I'll also share the industries they most apply to and how gathering critical information on the front end from your customers helps our team present the best recommendations in getting your job done. So with that said, we'll get started. So our agenda will cover the types of Cam Group couplings we offer, the material grades they are available in, the differentiating between import versus domestic, the Shank differences between the two product lines, performance versus quality, and understanding our hydrostatic test reports, the value of stamp data, and winning business with our performance and price on our domestic performance at an import price coupling line. So here is a one-page document for our Campbell Cobra versus standard Cobra, highlighting their respective key features, their recommended use, and pressure ratings at the bottom of the page. So it's a little difficult to see because it is small, but I can send this PDF document to you at any time. And it also can be found on page 14 in our most current catalog. So the Cam Group product is well known throughout the industry, and you'll see it used just about anywhere. And it is a import product designed to Campbell Fittings, strict Campbell Fitting applications and specifications. So you'll see a 360 ferrule interlocking groove on the top right picture, serrations designed for its intended use of gripping and sealing for higher retention, and the bottom sealing bump reduces potential tube damage. Some of the benefits are distributors can use the same standard ferrules on our Campbell Cobra Cam Group as are used on our crimpnology nipples and chem joint couplings as well. The relief bump extends the life of the crimp system from tube wear, which can happen when hoses are bent and impulsed. The interlocking cam and groove allows for higher working pressures and temperatures for multiple hose constructions. So there are two lines, the standard Cobra and Campbell Cobra, allowing you guys to stock competitive Cam Group products. The locking handle kits that you can see on the side of the actual Campbell Cobra, which I am actually pointing to with my mouse at the moment, can be retrofit for the Campbell Cobra, which allows distributors to stock fewer parts and react to immediate customer requests and needs. The recommended use for this particular line is for multi-purpose liquid, chemical, and bulk handling, and to be used with our interlocking ferrules. At the bottom, which again, I said this is a fairly small chart, is just kind of highlighting the max system working pressure at 70 degrees Fahrenheit for our Campbell Cobra in stainless steel and aluminum, both recommended to be attached with a ferrule and used with a chemical or rubber hose. And as you slide across from left to right on the bottom, you'll see it available in starting at a 1/2 inch up to a 6 inch. Sorry, 8 inch. And you'll see a 1.5 inch for a Campbell Cobra stainless steel can reach a max PSI of 250 at 70 degrees. And then just directly underneath that, an aluminum can reach 225 PSI at 70 degrees. So it's important to understand that this lines, although imported, and they are designed by Campbell Fittings and produced to our strict specification. I mention this because here at Campbell, we pride ourselves in testing and testing some more to make sure that their performance levels are up to par. So we'll move on to outlining our standard Cobra and our Campbell Cobra. So here are some of the actual features that differentiate the two. The standard Cobra is used in lower pressure applications and matched and used with 2 large bands or sleeves. It's a lesser expensive contractor grade for lower applications like water transfer, and they're backed by hundreds of testings that we provide for you. The Campbell Cobra is designed to achieve higher pressures at higher temperatures, has that 360 interlocking groove for the turn-ins on the ferrules to grass, causing or creating a mechanical airlock in the interlock. It has an aggressive serration pattern on the shank as well, designed by Campbell Fittings, and the locking arms for extra retention. So one of the biggest key takeaways from the Campbell Cobra and standard Cobra is just because the standard Cobra takes a sleeve versus a ferrule doesn't make it any worse. It's just used for lower pressure applications, but must still maintain the 4-to-1 safety factor where the hose fails first. So we talked about the shank differences a little bit on the last 2 slides, but here are some images kind of showing you where the differences stand. So the picture on the right is going to show the multiple pit serrations, as the picture on the left will show you the 2 indentions used for sleeves and or banding. The 360 interlocking groove that is on the picture on the right for the Campbell Cobra versus no interlocking groove on the left picture for the standard Cobra. Keep in mind that matching the ferrule and sleeve length is very critical to have your ferrule interlock with the groove for holding power, along with having the shank line up with all the serrations, which allows for stronger retention on the Campbell Cobra. So these 2 couplings are available to you in a variety of material grades. 316 and 304 stainless steel, aluminum and brass, the most commonly used in the industry. We also provided in ductile iron, which is seen in frac applications used by sand haulers in the oil field. It's rarely used today, but it is still available to you. The poly glass is a non-crimp material, and the nylon glass is the least common material grade you'll see out in the industry. Again, still available, just not commonly seen in today's line of work. So a little bit more on the material grades to kind of see where they're used and why. The aluminum coupling is used for heavy duty, non-spark resistant applications. They're extremely light in weight, making them ideal for environments where you may have a 100-foot or 200-foot hose that has multiple couplings on there for ease of connection and disconnecting them. They are manufactured from ASTM B26 alloy, which meets the ASTM specification for cam and groove couplings used in petroleum transfer application, oil suction discharge, and water suction discharge. The 316 stainless steel, desired for their durability and outstanding corrosion resistance, used heavily in chemical transfer corrosive environments and pre-processed foods. Manufactured from ASTM A351 casting alloy and meets the ASTM and military specification for cam and groove couplings. And lastly, brass, the preferred coupling material for spark resistance used in steel processing, marine applications, corrosive environments. Again, manufactured from ASTM B62, meeting the specifications for military and cam and groove couplings. They are all available in a variety of sizings, beginning from 3/4 inch up to 8 inch. All the sizings can be found on our online catalog or in an actual catalog that you may have at your office or reaching out to your local RSM. We show that it goes up to 8 inch, but there are instances where you might find a customer asking you for a size that's not in our catalog, and you can just bring that information to us. We can't guarantee that it's something that we can provide, but we can definitely take a look at it and see if it's something our engineers can come up with for you. So there's a few warnings that we like to pinpoint and make sure that you guys are paying attention to when you use our cam and groove line out in the field. The couplings are never to be used for compressed gas or steam applications. It's important that you understand that because you will see it used out in the field. And it's not that they're not designed, it's just they're not rated for these specific applications, and therefore we don't advise that you use them for compressed gas or steam applications. If you consider and take into account the pressure and temperature combinations of these applications, it's likely that the arms can come loose, resulting in an accident occurring. Another one is when the replacement of cam arms need to be done, you should only use the original manufacturer's replacement arms. And lastly, in band clamp styles, you want to make sure that the buckles are on the opposite ends when you are spacing the clamps. You'll rotate 180 degrees from each other. If you actually put the buckles on the same side, it increases the pressure on that side of the hose and can create a premature leak path. So with that said, I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time. We're going to actually take a poll right now, and Courtney's going to launch that. So just take a few seconds to read through the question and answer, and then we'll review the percentage of people who are right and who's wrong. So Courtney, if you're ready, you can launch that question for me. So what is the recommended use for cam and groove couplings? See if anyone was paying attention. We're almost there. About 75% of you have voted already. Remember, there's 2 applications that I specifically said to not use them in. Give you just a few more seconds and we'll close out the poll. All right, guys, thank you for taking the time to answer. Courtney, can you close out that question, please? Thank you. All right, so the actual recommended use for the cam and groove couplings is going to be your multi liquid bulk and chemical transfer hose applications. So great job. Remember, we don't want to use it for any steam or compressed gas applications as they are not currently rated or tested for them. So moving along. Sorry, guys, just a second. So we'll talk about a little bit more about the Campbell Cobra pressure ratings, and then we'll actually talk a little on the differences between the standard and the Campbell Cobra when it comes to spilling and pressure ratings. So this specific one, as we talked on, this was actually on the PDF file that I covered at the very beginning, highlighting the pressure at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, just a little blown up. So I can actually send this to anybody at, after this recording who's interested in it. Again, it just kind of highlights what max PSI for the Campbell Cobra reaching, depending on the hose sizes that you're using. So a 3-inch hose can achieve up to 150 PSI on the standard stainless steel Campbell Cobra and 125 on a Campbell Cobra aluminum. So on this chart, to make you guys laugh a little bit, it actually illustrates just how dangerous a spill of any caliber can be. So in this specific example, we like to refer to loss in the terms of a spilled keg of beer. So you're supposed to laugh right now because no one likes to waste beer. You'll hear people say, you might hear people say, well, a spill in a low pressure application can't possibly be that big of a deal, but it can be, and it is. So any amount of spill is costly and extremely dangerous. So in this particular scenario, a 2-inch suction and discharge hose at 150 PSI, you will have spilled over 15.5 gallons, which is actually more than a keg of beer. Here on the spill rate water discharge table, which is measured in gallons per minute, we actually are going to use an example of a standard Cobra over at Campbell Cobra. So if you look at the 2-inch, and I'm going to use my mouse to point to this, a 2-inch hose at 150 PSI, you might think no big deal, it's a cheap application, but a 2-inch hose at 150 PSI spills a keg's worth of media in 2 seconds. And I got to this number by getting this 478 number and dividing that by 60 seconds, so 60 seconds in a minute, and then multiplying it by the number of seconds it takes for that spill to be shut down. So for this specific example, we talked about 15.5 gallons being spilled in 2 seconds. So, you know, again, that's more than a keg of beer. So that is extremely a large amount of any liquid that you're actually passing through that hose to be spilling in such a short amount of time. So in a situation like this, you need to be cheap, but you need it to work as well. And this is where you can trust our economical choice is fully capable of these applications. So we've done the testing and we have reports to prove their performance. So just remember, guys, at any point in time, if you have any questions you want to ask, we'll answer them at the end. Just jot them down and remember to put them in the question box over in the control panel. So in case you're wondering who's the right customer for this product, I'm going to kind of help you find out who and why and where they're most commonly used. So the most common industries that we'll see the Cam & Groove line used in is petroleum, chemical, and bulk transfer, oil and gas, and construction and mining, as known as water transferring. So here is a picture of our aluminum Cam & Groove used on the top right photo. And then on the bottom right, you'll see it, the arms are actually duct taped down, which is not what you want to do. It's not a recommended safety, added safety features, but you will see it out in the field. So in this particular industry, you'll see it used for tank trucks, tank farms, mixing rooms, water removal, and sewage bypass. And this specific one was actually used for chemical transfer. You'll see the truck here on the top. In the oil and gas industry, you'll see an Instalock up on the top right corner. The bottom right is a stainless steel Campbell Cobra used for fracking, water transfer, and chemical transfer as well. Helps to avoid costly spills and downtime. And lastly is the construction and mining industry, water transferring. You'll see the Cam & Groove on the bottom with the aluminum locking arms as well. So the Cam & Groove couplings are an industry standard and used heavily in these industries due to their convenience and because of their ease of use and connection and disconnecting them. So saving time is important in any oil and gas or chemical and refining application. And we all know that time means money. This quick reference guide I put together for you to kind of highlight what attachment should be used in the application. So if you take a look at the left, you'll see material handling and or bulk transfer. You'll want to use a crimp ferrule or sleeve depending on the pressure and temperature that is the application is calling for, but it can also be used with the band and buckle or preformed clamp for lower pressure applications. The middle section is, fill an oil petroleum drop. You'll use a crimp ferrule on the sleeve as well. Petroleum vapor recovery, a preformed clamp, petroleum discharge, band and buckle. And then again, we touched on which applications to not use this particular coupling in, and that is steam or compressed gas. And lastly, the water and multi-purpose application, you can use a crimp ferrule and sleeve, a preformed clamp, or a band and buckle. So the next couple of slides I'm going to cover are going to help you read through and understand our hydrostatic test reports and their findings. But before we begin, we're going to take a second poll. And Courtney, if you're ready, you can launch that at any moment. And this one, since we're talking about hydrostatic testing reports that we provide, is: has anyone seen a performance test provided from any other competitor manufacturer? You guys are responding fairly quickly on this one. We're actually almost done. Wow. 75% done. And if anyone has answered yes, do you know if they're following any ASTM D380 NAHAT standard? All right, Courtney, I think we are done, and you can go ahead and close that out. So 82% of you answered no, that you've not seen any kind of provided documentation for test reports from our competitors, and 18% of you actually said yes, you have. I've never seen one, so it's interesting to see, or know who these are coming from. But it is important to remember that we are testing every day. Our engineering departments love to run tests, and we recently changed up our process and how we present these testing to you in the format. It used to just be a Word document. We started to add pictures to kind of show the process, the progress along the testing. So we'll start with looking at one on a Campbell Cobra stainless steel. So this particular testing was conducted on a stainless steel 3-inch Campbell Cobra. Its maximum highest pressure achieved was 1228 PSI at 80 degrees Fahrenheit. As you can see in the center picture on the top row, that's showing you ends 1 and end 2 at 750 PSI. And then again to the right of that picture at 1000 PSI. And then you'll see a close-up of the hose burst at E1 or N1, achieving a highest pressure of 1228. So the Campbell's recommended pressure rating for this particular application is 150 PSI at 70 degrees. And this performance validates that the rating actually was able to reach an 8.19 times safety factor. And this second test was conducted on a standard Cobra aluminum, a 2-inch hose, achieving 809 PSI at 80 degrees as well. You'll see that there was some hose stretching in the center picture on the top row at 300 PSI. And then the highest pressure achieved was 809, and the hose burst was on end 2, seen on the top right picture. The actual water was bursting out. And then you can see a close-up of the hose burst in the center picture on the bottom row. So keep in mind, we always say that the hose will fail before the fitting fails, and in both of these specific examples, that is what you saw. So even though this one burst at 809 PSI, it still achieved 5.4 times the 150 PSI working pressure before that hose burst. So I talked about stamp data and obtaining the information on the front end to help our inside sales team and myself, or the respective RSMs in your region, make the best recommendation for your application. So I know you guys have probably seen stamp everywhere. So I'm just going to kind of go through these and kind of explain why it's important to have each one of these factors supplied to us when you're asking us to make recommendations for your customers. So the size, you'll need to know the hose ID, the OD, and the length, because it refers to the overall dimensions of the hose required for the needs, your needs. The temperature, you need to consider both the internal and external. Most people would say, well, it's going to reach 150 degrees, you know, but they're not factoring the conditions that the hose will be sitting in, whether it's, you know, snowing outside or it's 101 degrees outside as well. So just keep in mind that you need to consider both internal, the media, and the friction running through those hoses, and the external ozone and sunlight temperatures. The application is referring to the chemical, you know, what is it used for? Chemical, petroleum, air application, what's the environment in which the hose is going to be used in, and are you factoring those into the equation as well? Is there any direct exposure to oil or petroleum products? That's another factor that you can think about when you're thinking about application. If so, your customer will need a hose that is made from special compounds that can resist oil, such as nitrile. Media is what's conveying through the hose at the time of the application. Diesel, water, air. This is extremely important because the media will come into contact with the ID of the hose. And certain rubber compounds are made to withstand particular media, and others are not. The pressure is the working pressure, not the lay line. Just a key point to take away from this particular aspect is a hose cannot be used at its maximum rated working pressure and also its maximum rated temperature at the same time. So just be aware of any spikes in pressure and allow for those drastic changes in the design and selection of your hose to be equated into the formula. The ends, what are, you know, the male MPT or the cam locks, ground joints, etc. Because the hose assembly is rated for the lesser of the working pressure of the hose and the fitting. And lastly is the delivery, referring to when the assembly is expected to be on the job. What did you confirm or commit to for your customers? That's important because we need to make sure that it's in inventory. It's something that can be met by our people at Campbell Fittings. And just remember, a rule of thumb is gather as much parameters as possible to ensure that you're selecting the right fitting for your intended applications. Everything that we do here at Campbell Fittings is based off this stamped info. So selecting between a standard Cobra and a Campbell Cobra is purely based off of it. And we're going to do one more poll. So hope you guys are still awake. And Courtney, if you can start that poll. And the question is, let's see, you know, we're going to see how well you're listening. What is the original 2-bump shank coupling designed to be used with? So think about it. I showed you a picture that had duct tape on it. You're doing good. You're about 50% of you have voted. Keep those responses coming in. Give you a few more seconds and we'll close out. About 75%, or you got about 25% of you that have not voted. So just take a quick second to go ahead and answer that. All right. So 75% of you answered banding and 16% of you answered sleeve. Good job. As none of you answered the duct tape, which is great. And then 9% of you answered B and D, which are correct. The 2-bump shank can be used with sleeves or banding. Great job, everyone. I'm going to close this out. So my job here, or any of the RSM job, is to help you guys win more business. And what do we mean by winning more business with domestic performance at an import price? So when we're talking about our couplings, you should, hopefully with the information that you gathered and what you know about the industry in regards to Campbell Group couplings, you can confidently share that we actually have a quality import product that has and is backed by domestic performance. And I say this because we will hear this a lot in the field, end users saying that they want something that works, whether it's a fitting or a coupling. In the past, they've always equated domestic made products with the best performance. So they're sourced from some of our domestic made competitors on this specific line, assuming that it's domestic, so it has to be, has to be good and it must be quality and it must work. But then here's the kicker. So you want a domestic made product, but you want it at a cheap price. So we can actually provide this to you with our line because our line is imported, but they are made to our patterns and designs. And on top of that, we are continuously conducting quality control. We're inspecting these parts that they're coming in, and we've exhausted hours and hours of testing. The 2 tests that we reviewed earlier, our engineers love doing that. They love testing and blowing up hoses, and this is done to prove out their performance. So with that in mind, we do have an import product at an affordable, less expensive price that is performing, and our tests can prove that. So with that being said, let us help increase your margins. Let us help get your foot in the door to your customers by lowering their cost of assemblies without compromising the integrity of the performance that's needed. So I know that was a little short. It's 12:30, 30 minutes into it, but we'll take some questions now that any of you may have. Don't be shy. Send your questions in. I've got Tommy Path on the line as well. That's going to help me sort out these questions, and we'll get them answered to you as they start coming in.
Hi, Rebecca. It's Rob. I'm going to sub in for Tommy on this one. So I'll read off some questions and we'll handle them together.
Okay.
So early on in our presentation, there was the question, do both the regular Cobra and the Campbell Cobra both have locking grooves? The answer to that is no. The Campbell Cobra has the locking groove for the ferrule. The regular or standard Cobra is just for use for a sleeve or band clamps.
Correct.
Another question we had was using cam and groove material handling bolt transfer, what is the maximum pressure you would use with band clamps? That's actually a really great question. So band clamps is difficult to give you a pressure rating. And it's because the band clamps are not a permanent attachment. Now, having said that, since we are part of a band clamp manufacturer now with the strap binder line from Ideal Trident, we have been working on some pressure ratings that we could publish. But typically in the past, you really need to control both the fitting and the attachment in order to give a pressure rating for those. So if you have a specific size and a specific application, we can get you an answer that we would feel comfortable with, a recommendation. But as far as a published pressure rating, that's something that we'll be working on here in the months to come. Someone was also playing a joke on us saying, what is the pressure rating for duct tape? I think all of us know that should be 0, but don't tell your customers or let them tell you any different either. Actually had another similar question about the band clamps as well. Again, when it was a third party band clamp manufacturer using a cam and groove from a different supplier and obviously a hose from a third vendor, you're really just cobbling different parts together, and there's no published pressure ratings, and the reality is that no one manufacturer is going to stand behind that. So we're working on those pressure ratings right now. But if you need a further clarification and an answer in the short term, do reach out to your regional sales manager like Rebecca or our technical sales at Campbell Fittings 800 number.
Guys, have any more questions out there? We'll be more than happy to answer them for you.
So as far as some of the pressure ratings, again, for the band clamps, there is a torque rating that you can get for those band clamps, but not the PSI rating. So we do have some additional data if that's something that you are looking for your application.
All right, guys. Well, I thank you all for your time and for logging in today. I hope that I shed some light on our Cameron Group line. But if there's anything additional that you guys need from us, feel free to reach out to myself. My name again is Rebecca Sines. I'm the regional sales manager in the Houston and South Texas region. My email address is up on the screen. My cell phone number, and then the Campbell Fittings direct line. If you don't know who the regional sales manager is in your territory or your area, just shoot me a quick email. A link will be followed up in an email, I think, to you guys, right, Rob? Following this recording.
Yes.
And I'll be more than happy to get you in touch with your regional sales manager. I think that's it, guys. I thank you all for your time.